resolution which sets the assessment in place. The citywide assessment has no escalator. It's the same amount, $82.50 for the single family home in Winters. Item C is the engineer's report, and the long and short of it, the engineer's report is just a list of all of the parcels and the amounts that fall into the overall assessment district. Item D has to do with everybody's, I think a lot of people's favorite nursing school in town, WPNS. The city has had a very long-standing relationship with WPNS, and in this case, we are extending the agreement out for 5 years. I will share with the council and the community that WPNS has been a very good tenant. The arrangement's really simple. They do all the maintenance, they pay all the utility bills, they do everything regarding the buildings, and they have been very cooperative in the past. They've worked with first 5 YOLOs, so at the end of the day, they're getting a bargain to be in there, but I think the city gets a lot out of what WPNS does for the community. Item E is a resolution for a public utility easement. This is for phase 2, the subdivision Stone's Throw. This is really simple. It's all the utilities that go into the ground. So as this development is moving and as we inspect the rest utilities going in, we need to enter into a public utility easement regarding that, and that's what item E does. Item F has to do with a strip of land on Moody Slough, which is out at the new Moody Slough, which is probably the best street in town, kind of. But this is a total of 0.197 acres of land as the project developed and the amount is recorded. There's a strip of property that the city is basically going to dedicate, or at least we lease back to the property owners. So the property owners get a little more lawn in front of their house, and the good news is the city doesn't have to maintain that. So kind of a win-win for everybody. That's the consent calendar. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there any questions for the city manager?
Yeah, I just have one question. I'm not sure about item D, whether I'm too close to the parent nursery school or if it matters whether I'm close or not. It's not anything to do with the build. Well, anyway, can I vote on that?
Now, let me do a super quick, sorry, I was going to get this. Let's do a quick Zoom. Matter of fact, tonight, we'll let everybody see if Councilmember New can vote on this item. Right. Let's see, where is, okay, let's blow this thing up a little bit. Put the measuring tool out. And okay, we'll go from the edge of Councilmember New's property, and let's see how far Councilmember New lives. So that's about the edge of Councilmember New's property. So just the crosswalk, 774 feet. Okay, so I think
You're okay, Pierre.
you have made it.
Thank you.
That is democracy in action right there.
Does anybody else have any questions on the consent calendar?
I'll motion to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, we'll hold that motion for a minute. Is
All
there
right.
anybody in the audience that wishes to speak to the consent calendar?
Mayor, I'm not showing any.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Lauren. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, we have a second from Councilmember New. Okay, Tracy, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lauren,
Aye.
Councilmember New,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi,
Aye.
and Mayor Cowan.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. On to the discussion items. The first item we have tonight is a public hearing to receive input from specific property owners regarding implementation of our weed abatement for 2020. And this will be with the city manager and the building official.
Mayor and council, why don't I try my best, and then if Jean has anything to add. Annually, the city has our weed abatement program. As part of this, it requires a public hearing, which allows property owners who may have a dispute with the overall fire abatement program to come in and address the city council. With this, what staff's requesting is that you simply hold the public hearing on this item, take any input, and close the public hearing and direct it back to staff. Thank you. And I don't know, Jean, do you have anything to add? He's muted.
Yeah, he's muted, John.
I don't know. He can unmute himself. Jean has muted himself.
I am unmuted now?
Yes,
Yes.
you're unmuted.
Yeah, I have no additional comments to make. We are actually about three and a half weeks ahead of where we were last year on this program.
Okay, thank you. John, do we have some, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:59. John, do you see any hands up for public comments regarding weed abatement?
I don't see any hands up on the screen yet.
Okay, while we're waiting to see, I do know that we've gotten a couple of letters that I believe went to the entire city council. There was one signed by quite a few residents on Dry Creek Lane, I believe it is, after the fire. And Tracy, was there anybody else that wrote letters regarding this item?
No, I didn't receive any.
Okay. But you did get the letter as well, right, Tracy, for the property owners along Dry Creek that had comments about the fire and their feelings that there's a need for maybe more than 2 mowings a year, and they were just, concerned about, how close that fire got to their house last week. Did you receive that? Is it in the record?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, no, if you want, I'll address that. I've got the letter, letter up here. Basically, we received a letter from 4 different residences on Dry Creek, from Mr. Maxwell Thomas and Marla Weston, from Melinda Hurst, Doug Frey and Juanita Martinez Frey, and Richard and Carol Holstock. Essentially, they sent a letter to the city council and for some of the staff. They were requesting the city consider moving the weed abatement from a twice-year inspection to a 3-year inspection. I can tell you that this has been directed back to the staff. So looking at that, if we were going to change our overall procedure, it would require us to go back and revamp a couple of things. But we are taking this under consideration. The fire that was out there this weekend, I know is still under investigation. So for those residents, they need to know. We have the letter. I can tell you that it's been kind of going around with the staff, and over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll be addressing it. And when we bring this all back in, we'll respond back to it at that time. But and plus, we'll also respond to the residents.
Okay, good. And I do know that, the fire chief, wrote a letter back to all of those residents as well. So he's, fully aware and responded as well. Okay, John, is there anybody else that's raised a hand to speak to the weed abatement?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we've got Marla's iPhone. So, Marla, why don't you go ahead?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'm one of the folks who lives on Dry Creek. Was involved with the letter, and we had a pretty frightening situation on Saturday. And we're very thankful, as we say in the letter, to the fire department and the police department for their good work in protecting not only our street, but of course all the streets of Winters behind us from coming to the fire. And it was frighteningly close. And we're also quite thankful the wind changed direction a little bit. Otherwise, it could have been catastrophic. So what we wanted to say and what we were trying to say in the letter is that we are concerned that when the grasses get too high and present a dangerous condition on that property that I believe now is owned by the Catholic Diocese in Sacramento, when we call the city and express that there's a dangerous condition, the response is that we are met with is that it's scheduled to be abated sometime in June and there's nothing more we can do. So our concern is first and foremost that there's a responsibility on the part of not only of the owner of the property to abate that situation when it becomes dangerous, and not just on a twice a year schedule or even a 4 times a year schedule, but to be aware when there's a dangerous condition on the property and abate it immediately would be the first point. And the second point would be that when that doesn't happen and residents call in and say, we have a dangerous condition that we can't abate ourselves because it's not on our property, that the city takes action either to abate it or to cause it to be abated in a timely manner.
Okay, thank you, Marla. Is there anybody? Yeah. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to this item, John?
And showing, I know their hands are raised. So.
Linda Hurst.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
She's going old school. We'll go to Linda. We've got you. Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you. I am so impressed with everything you guys are handling right now in terms of the virus and all these unusual circumstances. So I just want to say that in advance, that thank you for everything you're handling. I would just like to know that when there is a problem like this, that's a direct safety threat, that there's some sort of mechanism within the city to get a more rapid response than I've seen currently. Because we all know that fires are a reality, and the 1st of June or the middle of June is awfully late to be mowing for fire risk. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
John, do we see any other hands?
No other hands.
Okay. All right. Well, then I don't believe we have to vote on this again. It's just direction. Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Lawrence.
Wait, may I make a comment that, well, one of the values or one of the main policies of the California cities this year is climate change and climate change adaptation. And I think that this kind of works with that fire season used to be something that we could predict, and it's no longer a predictable time of year. And because it's no longer following the pattern that we have depended on and we are aligned with, and as is Davis and other cities around us, I believe that we need to lead the way on this and possibly add a third time period to our weed abatement, and then also provide more clarity to the public on what they can do with land that is adjacent to their property. So I'm asking for the, direct staff to look at adding a third time period for weed abatement and to clarify, a way for people to report and have action on weed abatement.
Okay, is there anybody else on the council that wants to comment on this item? Okay, all right, with that said, then, I guess, staff has direction, based on, comments made by the public and Councilmember Lauren. And I believe from my conversation with the city manager that, that's already in talks with, Public Works and stuff about possibly shifting some dates around, making the first SMO a little earlier and, one in the middle of the summer and then one later in the year. Isn't that correct, John?
Yeah, no, with the letter, just as we're looking at things, weed abatement is not a perfect science. It's not an exact science. And trying to figure out when we need to move on this stuff, absolutely. So I can tell you that from the staff perspective, we certainly appreciate the input that we've got from people. But I can tell you, as soon as this fire hit, we were talking about it. So now look for us to work on this. And tonight's public hearing is a part of the process. You talked about a first or second thing. This is getting the wheels in motion. The need for an evaluation of maybe our calendar and those types of things will be part of our overall discussion, and we will bring that back to the council. As a matter of fact, this will come back to the council in June when we actually move forward with some things, and we'll report back then.
Okay, thank you. And I was just reminded by the city clerk that I need to close the public hearing, which I will do as of 7:09. So thank you, Tracy, for the reminder. And I believe without any further comment from the council, we can move on to discussion item number 2.
Oh, Mayor,
Yes?
I think the fire department wanted to talk about it, so.
Oh, okay.
I think if fire chief raises his hand, we'll let him.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
We can.
Good, all right, good evening. Yeah, I just wanted for the record to acknowledge, the folks' concern in regards to this weekend's fire. Very understanding concerns. That fire was very fast moving and a number of those homes were an immediate threat. So we were fortunately able to take quick action on that. And some of the factors that played a role was a shift in wind change. But I can tell you, if we'd be in the middle of summer with increased temperatures and lower humidities, we might be in a different circumstance. But we are working on this. I did address Mr. Thompson's email today, and we are taking this very seriously. We're also following up on the investigation. So if anybody has information leading to that, that would be helpful.
All right, great. Thank you, Chief. All right, moving on to item number 2. It's a resolution 2020-22. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Winters authorizing the establishment of an OPEB trust to be administered by Public Agency Retirement Services, PARS, and U.S. Bank. I believe the city manager will take this.
No, let me give a shout to Shelley.
Okay, Shelley.
Good evening, council. So what I have before you tonight is Resolution 2020-22. We're asking you to establish a trust for other post-employment benefits, or OPEB, to be administered by PARS and the U.S. Bank, and asking you to appoint the Director of Financial Management as the plan's administrator, authorizing the Director of Management to execute the document, estimate the OPEB trust, as well as a strategy estimate. In June of 2019, the staff brought before the council a policy on paying down pension OPEB, other post-employment liabilities. We then amended that policy in December, and the policy was put in place to set up a way for the city of Winters to move forward on making additional payments to address the unfunded liability in pensions and other post-employment benefits. This policy was the city would enter into an agreement with an appropriately selected provider of a Section 115 trust that's set up specifically to fund OPEB liabilities. What you do is you set money aside in that trust, and then it is a way of showing that you are making positive financial decisions in working towards paying down the liabilities that are incurred as a result of having employees. So the city of Winters, other post-employment benefits is just the health insurance that retired employees can continue to get through CalPERS. The city's required to pay around, right now I think we're paying $136 a month towards each person's health insurance after they retire, and that's $136, and then the employee is responsible for, depending on whether it's a single individual or a family or a couple, it's anywhere from another $600 to another $2,000. So the employee pays the largest portion of the health insurance that comes out of their retirement money, but the city, as a part of their contract efforts, is required to pay the minimum amount, and this year that's about $136 per person per month. So under some of the governmental accounting standards, they find that it's best to have these trusts put away, or have these trusts set up, and we put money away in the trust, and then you can either pay your health insurance premiums out of that trust, or you can continue to pay as you go until you get to the point that, and pay as you go means you pay it every month and you don't set any money aside. Our policy says that we were going to start setting money aside in the 2021 budget, which I think is going to be really difficult, with the exception that there are some liabilities that are related to water and sewer. So we felt that now we needed to adhere to the policy as far as getting the trust set up and be ready to make contributions from at least the water and sewer funds based on what our policies said we were going to do, because we have the budget situation that we talked about last council meeting, and we'll talk about a little more later. We're not sure that the general fund's going to be able to make the general fund contributions, but we have to start somewhere. And so we decided to go with cars, because basically the choices are, the two best, the biggest choices are between cars and CalPERS. CalPERS has all of our investments for all of our pensions. We didn't feel that it was necessarily the best to have all of our eggs in one basket, so we kind of wanted to diversify out a little bit, and that's part of why we selected cars. So the requirements for establishing the OPEB is to adopt a resolution authorizing the participation in the CARS Public Agency Post-Employment Benefits Trust, select an investment strategy for the trust, appointing city representative as the city's plan administrator, and authorize the city representative to execute the documents to implement the trust. And so that's what we're asking for tonight. We requested that the Director of Financial Management be the representative, just because there's so much going on. It didn't seem that we should put one more thing on the city manager's plate. We have a lot going on. And this is just one thing that another staff member could take care of instead of putting it off his shoulders. So that was why it was selected the way it was.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Does anybody on the council have any questions or comments for Shelley or John?
I do.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is Karen. I think I understood what Shelley was saying, but I just want to clarify. Are we putting more money away, or are we just putting money in a different place now? In a trust rather than, I know that we paid this all along, but now are we just relocating the money?
So we will continue to pay the amounts that we're required to pay monthly to CalPERS. We pay those amounts monthly on our health insurance policies. But we're proposing that we set additional monies aside. So as our group of employees grows, we have money set aside to pay those liabilities, and we don't end up with a huge unfunded liability because we have a larger group of retired employees, which makes the month-to-month amount more difficult to manage. But by setting it up and getting it moving now with monies that we have at the end of every year or at the end of every month, we start accumulating the money. And if we ever end up in a recession like what we have now, it can be helpful for cash flow purposes later on. And that's why I said we'll probably most likely just fund the water and sewer portions of this in the first fiscal year, because we are looking at a recession due to COVID-19, and the general fund budget is very challenging right now without adding extra costs into it. By utilizing, the costs are related to where the employee works. So we have employees that are just assigned to the sewer fund. We have employees that are just assigned to the water fund, and those funds need to pay their fair share. So in actuality, what we're asking to do is set aside additional monies every year so that we start planning. It's kind of like for lack of a better word, kind of like you set money aside in a deferred comp while you were working. So when you retired, you have some savings to draw on. With trust is similar. We're setting money aside now in smaller amounts that will be invested by the CARS and U.S. Bank. It will grow, and so we will have more money set aside as our group of retired employees grow. We already have a bank setting out there to pay down or to pay their retiree health insurance costs with. Health insurance is going to go up, our share is going to go up, and so this is kind of a way of our planning for our retirement. You can kind of think about with CalPERS at one point, our unfunded liabilities about 20 years ago were very, very small. And we talked about how that amount has grown over the years based on investment, how the liability has grown over a year based on investments and the change in the workforce and the number of people retiring. And so what we want to do is we don't want that unfunded liability for the health insurance to continue to grow. We want to start setting money aside now. And by putting it in a 115 trust, we have to show how much we predict our unfunded liabilities are going to be every year. We have to put that in our capper. And by setting money aside, we show, okay, this is what we think we are going to owe. And we're able to show that we are taking financial measures and making investments against that liability. So the liabilities start shrinking. They offset each other. And so at some point, if we are lucky and the economy is cooperative with us, we should be able to put together where the unfunded liability and some point our investments plus their earnings will be equal, and we won't have an unfunded liability. But every dollar that we put into that trust will reduce our unfunded liability. And so it shows good financial management on our part, and that we're paying attention to what's out there, and that we're trying to manage that and keep that as small as possible, and doing it in a measured, thoughtful approach.
Thank you, Shelley. Now, and I heard you say it, but I want to hear it again. When did you say we were going to start putting this money away?
In 2021.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there anybody else on the council that has questions? Bill, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question for Shelley. On item number 4 of the recommendation, to select the investment strategy for the OPEB trust, is that ours is selecting that investment strategy? Who's picking that strategy?
They have a, for lack of a better word, menu of investments, and city staff selects from that menu of investments how we want our funds to be invested. So they're just like, so comparison wise, you know, PERS has a slate of investments that they invest in, and HUD has a slate of investments that they invest in, and they go from more risk to less risk. So you can be very conservative, which means you'll earn less investment earnings, or you can be very aggressive, which means you will earn higher earnings, but your principal is more at risk. So we'll look at that menu of available options and try to figure out what our best investment strategy is so that we can get the best investments with the least amount of risk. So we have to look at the menu of what they're offering. And again, what we want to do is get our the highest investment with the lowest amount of risk. So we don't want to lose any of the money. We want to just, we want to maintain the principal and then have earnings. Kind of, you know, again, think of it as how you do with your deferred comp plan. You know, typically on a personal level, you invest your money in your 401k or your 457k or your IRA, and you select what funds you want to invest in. They have a menu of funds, and depending on your personal risk level, what you're comfortable with, you choose how your money is invested to grow the way you want it to grow to be ready for you at retirement. We will do something similar. They'll have a menu for us. We will sit down and analyze it. We'll look at the history. We'll look at the performance. And then we'll figure out what we think is the best way to invest our money to get us where we want to go.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lauren, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question.
Okay. Anybody else? Harold? Okay. All right. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this item?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, no hands are up.
Okay. With that said, if there's no further questions for staff, we entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
Okay, Councilmember New has made the motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Biaggi, second. Okay, Tracy, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lauren,
Aye.
Councilmember New,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Biaggi,
Aye.
and Mayor Callen.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. And Shelley, thank you for your work on that. Okay, moving on. Item number 3 is the authorization to purchase a new radar trailer with digital signage, radar detection and traffic counting, and a license plate reader technology. I believe that'll be taken by the city manager and the police chief.
Yeah, Mayor Powell, I'll turn this over to the chief, if he's there. So, here, I'll just put up the picture. Chief, go ahead.
Good evening, I guess, to the Tuesday night meeting event here. So good evening, Mayor, Council members, City Manager, and members of the community. The proposal I'm presenting for your consideration tonight has 3 separate parts. First, a radar trailer due to the age and operability of our current trailer and traffic concerns in town. This radar trailer includes an enhanced message board, not just a speed display, as you can see up there in the picture. Second, the back-end hardware and software for traffic analysis. And third, fixing an ALPR technology with automatic license plate reading technology to the radar unfortunately, this become more about the ALPR concerns, about the ALPR component of it. And I do accept responsibility for the last council meeting about my oversight of Civil Code Section 1798.90.55, subsection K. That tells you any indication of how detailed the civil code is about this item, which requires public comment. And I appreciate being brought to our attention to the proper process is followed. However, I think it's still
Chief Miller,
yes, ma'am. Yes,
can I
ma'am.
interrupt you for just a moment?
Absolutely.
Isn't it also the adoption of the policy?
That is part of SB 34 and the civil code, but the policy, which I will be discussing, is not required to be adopted prior to it. We don't have the technology. So we have a policy in place for helicopter, drones, and canines when the Winter Police Department does not have helicopter, drones, or canines.
So we'll be taking up the policy at a separate time?
Yes, I gave a model policy. If the ALPR component is approved, that policy will be developed and brought forward and publicly displayed as required by SB 34.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
Go, keep going.
Okay. So again, I appreciate being brought to our attention. However, I didn't appreciate that it was skewed to look like this was somehow malevolent or underhanded. Even after we offer complete transparency and all the facts we make available, to the folks that were inquiring. So by combining all three of these technologies, the radar trailer message board, the traffic data collection and analysis component, and the ALPR in one platform, we'll have a multiple purpose piece of equipment that will serve the police department and enhance the safety of Winters community for years to come. So to kind of give a history about it, the Winters Police Department purchased a radar trailer in 1992 to help reduce speed and address traffic concerns through education. That's the radar trailer that you often see out on Grant Railroad or other areas. But over the last 4 years, the trailers require increasing maintenance due to its age. And we have been struggling to keep it operational. The last time it needed repair, we wanted to ensure it was going to be able to be repaired. But it was returned for service for the time being. Stated in the staff report, the new trailer will be equipped with a multifunctional display screen that can be used to not only display vehicle speed like our current trailer, but it can be used as a message board for multiple reasons, including emergencies and special events, just like the message boards that we brought in for tractor trailers last year. Further, kind of a cool feature of this thing is the displayed message can be edited remotely to update the message in real time. So that second component is the onboard operating system that can record and report traffic data. This includes traffic volume, time, speed, so that when we have a traffic complaint, we can deploy this device and we can accurately analyze, assess, and then respond to the traffic concerns, just like we did for Neiman Street last year, that we had to outsource to an engineering firm to do for us. So now onto the hot topic of ALPR. So ALPR was developed in actually 1970s and first deployed by law enforcement in the 1980s. By 2012, approximately 71% of all U.S. police departments were using ALP technology. 230 out of 391 California police and sheriff's agencies were recently surveyed, and they reported using ALPR technology, with another 36 agencies planning to implement ALPR. And that did not include the city of Winters at the time of the survey. So literally every surrounding agency to us already has and utilizes ALPR. And ALPR is part of everyday life. It's used for parking enforcement. If you go down the Bay Area, it's used for diamond lane enforcement, as well as bridge pole enforcement, just to name a few applications in the public sector. And ALPR is actually used in the private sector much more widely than by law enforcement. It was primarily by repossession companies, which we'll discuss in a second. So the city of Winters, we first started talking about ALPR in about 2016 after the cold fire. It was presumably started by arson. Then a spate of stolen vehicles, the cars were stolen in Winters and recovered in Vacaville. With a side note, they recovered in Vacaville through the Vacaville's ALPR system. I think we had a half dozen in a matter of 2, maybe 3 weeks stolen vehicles during Winters. So it's pretty evident we have people specifically coming to Winters to steal owners. And, so I think that's unfortunate, but, hopefully future cases we might have this available to us. So we had an intern, Gail Watson, back in 2017, who took on this project initially. And as I mentioned, staff report, the original hope was to mount them as the traffic standards were erected on Grant Avenue at Main and Matsumoto. But we were unable to work with Caltrans on that. Caltrans does not allow cities to mount ALPR in their standards due to electricity draw and data lines, et cetera. We did look at installing poles of our own and running the required infrastructure to them. It was just cost prohibitive, well over $100,000 to do that project. So it was just basically sidelined at that time. So kind of go into what it's all about. License plates are required to be displayed on vehicles or lawfully operate the vehicle on a public roadway. A license plate ensures the vehicle is properly registered, which includes payment of taxes and fees to help maintain public roadways, as well as obtaining a smog inspection in order to help reduce air pollution. Because license plates are required to be displayed while operating on a public roadway, there is no legal expectation of privacy for viewing or recording the license plate. Using optical character recognition, ALPR read and report license plates and compares it to a database of wanted vehicles, including stolen vehicles and amber alert vehicles. And then other vehicles, the agency specifically puts in that are wanted with or associated with potentially dangerous or wanted persons. The system then alerts local law enforcement that the vehicle is in the vicinity. And ALPR can also be used to backtrack, as I mentioned, with a homicide, and review license plates of vehicles that pass by that location just before or after a crime has been committed to assist law enforcement in developing investigative police. ALPR does not run a license plate to determine who the registered owner is. It doesn't run their driver's license status is, their immigration status, or even if there's any warrants for the driver of the vehicle. It's just about the license plate. So as an example, I have 4 vehicles registered to me, and me and my wife actually. And ALPR doesn't care if it's me or my son, my daughter, my wife driving the vehicle, or what our purpose is driving on the roadway. All it does is capture a license plate. So what you'll hear from opponents about ALPR is that it's warrantless mass surveillance. So other than the license plate being recorded, which is required like I described above, there is no other surveillance occurring. For example, I came to town this morning and Officer Toyota was sitting in a patrol car on Grant Avenue watching traffic. Yes, he was committing warrantless mass surveillance. In other words, he was being a diligent officer looking for traffic offenses, including drivers on cell phones, not wearing seatbelts, kids, child in child seat. He was looking for expired registration or any other type of vehicle violation by monitoring that traffic. That's much more, if you want to call it invasive and intrusive than just a device reading license plate. Legally, you could actually sit there with a camera or a piece of paper and write down every single license plate that passed by. But we have a piece of technology that would be efficient use of manpower, so we have an efficient, technology that does accomplish that task. So for California law, ALPR data collected by law enforcement can only be shared with public agencies and cannot be shared with immigration enforcement or SB 54 or with private entities such as repossession companies. There was a news report running that you'll often hear about or pops up on searches that was out in May of 2019 last year, which reported ALPR data was being shared with ICE. And this is technically true as well as technically not true. I'll go into that in just a second here. So like our body worn cameras that we realize, we own the recordings, but they store them on the cloud with a company called Axon. The recommended ALPR vendor Vigilant does basically the same thing as the ALPR data. Vigilant also provides the backend, which includes data management and search features, just like Axon and our body worn cameras. So the data is transmitted and stored in compliance with the FBI's Criminal Justice Information System, or was known as Signage, and their policies and procedures. And this requires dual authentication, encryption, as well as auditing features. Further, members of the local agency and agencies that the data is shared with must In fact, I just received a white paper from Vigilance earlier today, and it's been posted to the city's website with the agenda in the packet, which goes into all their Signage compliance and the technical detailed information about what that entails. And folks are definitely welcome to go over and click on that and take a look at it. So on the ICE thing again, so individual agencies control and we actually own the data. And we can only share with agencies that we have entered into an MOU, memorandum of understanding, which is done through Vigilant. And it has to be between the two agencies to share that data. So how the data was being shared with ICE was, if not all agencies had gone into their account management and closed the data sharing MOU with ICE when SB 54 went into effect in October of 2017. In fact, the recently came to light that one agency that I'll mention in a second in the state auditor's report had not updated their settings basically since 2014. So they were also still inadvertently sharing information with ICE. So it's a matter of the agency staying on top of that and ensuring they close the data sharing MOU with ICE to comply with SB 54. I mentioned the state auditor's report. That was in February of 2020. Now, first of all, we welcome audits and inspections, and we were audited and inspected all the time. This is a checks and balances system that allows us to fix systems where we err and also learn from others' mistakes. So the crux of the report is that 4 inspected agencies in Sacramento, Marin, Fresno, and Los Angeles issued their ALPR tech policy. Most notable, Los Angeles didn't even have a policy about ALPR, which is in violation of SB 34. But Los Angeles just kind of does their own thing. So I personally spoke with Lieutenant Jeff Edwards, who was a buddy of mine from Command College. He's with the Marin County Sheriff's Department, and he was participated in the audit process. He's in charge of a lot of the technology over there. Then he advised it was failure on their part to update their data sharing MOU after SB 54 went into effect and to update their internal list of who had access as required by the policy. So these issues with that agency have been rectified, and I can assure you will not be an issue for the Police Department since we're starting from scratch and have the benefit of the auditor's report. Not to mention that our staff is much more limited in access, it's easier to control. So as Council Member Lauren addressed, there is a policy that I provided in the packet. This is the boilerplate ALPR policy by Lexapol. So the Winters Police Department, as well as 95% of California law enforcement agencies, use Lexapol to develop model policies. If the ALPR component is approved, the policy will be tailored to specifically fit the Winters Police Department in order to abide by the requirements of SB 34, and specifically the guidelines outlined in section 430.3.1, which you can see right there under ALPR Administrator. All right, and that's, again, where Lieutenant Edwards said that they had failed to update that list. They had employees really coming and going and who had access to it. So the policy will be made available online to specifically comply with SB 34, just like all our policies are available online to comply with SB 978. Also outlined in the policy, following the government code section 34090.6, all the data will be destroyed in 1 year from collection unless being actively used in investigation, which is the same requirement of our body cam footage for the stored by Axon. And once again, the policy, once the guidelines are completed and implemented, will be in full compliance with the state auditor report. All right, so back to the trailer. Winters Police Department requested quotes from 3 manufacturers. We received 2 quotes in return. Both companies use the exact same message board and also the back-end traffic analysis software. DL Specialty was approximately $5,000 less than the other competing bids, and that is our recommendation. Also, the gentleman is the same guy who built our radar trailer back in 1992, and he basically provided almost 30 years of exceptional customer service to us over the years, and he's local. Total cost of the radar and trailer with the ALPR system is about $44,175.28. And there may be some additional costs in order to customize the trailer for some specific needs of the Winters Police Department, such as additional lighting and other security features. And that's not expected to be over another $1,000 if there is additional cost. So the other thing about equipping this particular trailer with ALPR is we're able to defer $31,289 for the cost of the trailer of the overall project to the vehicle tested current fund. And this is a fund that we will be losing in its entirety at the end of the fiscal year. The remaining $12,886 and any other additional costs that I mentioned will be from the traffic safety fund, so no funds from the general fund are being used for the project. For the initial bill, the annual maintenance and subscription service for the traffic analysis software backend, which I also failed to mention, I'm sorry, I included a package to give you an idea of what that does. About the maintenance and subscription service for the traffic analysis and the ALPR backend will be approximately $2,550 annually, and that will be built into the Winters Police Department operating budget beginning in fiscal year 21-22. So a lot of information. I tried to address what I suspect are the majority of the concerns. Hopefully I did that adequately, but I'm open to questions.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Does anybody on the council have questions for the chief?
I'd like to save my questions after public comment.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Biagi.
So how long do you think it will be on delivery if this item was approved for purchase? What's the build time delivery?
Oh, you know, I'm sorry, but I didn't ask. Now, Mr. Bill Strickland is the owner of BL Specialty, and he said that he has the message board already in hand, and so it'd be just a matter of him constructing trailers. I would suspect it would be a month or two at the most.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes, Mayor, one question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Anderson.
There used to be an issue with putting up signs, just a sign in general, for if the city started to allow non-law enforcement people to use this sign for, say, fundraising events or religious purposes or what have you. Used to be a tenet of the law that if you did that, then you opened up your signboard to anybody who wanted to use it, whether you like it or not. So hopefully the police or fire would not be wanting to use that board for community events. If that is still the case.
I don't foresee that being an issue. What we did for, and actually Mayor Allen was the one who came with the idea and secured the trailers, the message board trailers, and that was to identify parking for the tractor parade. I've seen, actually the same manufacturer of the message board, I've seen police departments using them for even COVID-19 testing. You know, and so that's the type of thing we'd be using for. Like if we had an emergency, like a road closure, I foresee, like I said, a special event identifying alternate parking, you know, things like that. Clicking tickets, messages, you know, all that type of public safety type thing.
Okay. Is there any other questions from council at this time? Councilmember New.
I have faith in the Winters Police Department, and I'm not worried about the police department and sharing information. But I do have a question. If every year you clear your files, and does that mean that the DevCon or whatever the organization that made it is, you would no longer have the information, or would they have the information? They get the information automatically as it's printed or as it's recorded in the computer on the trailer. Does it go to them directly, or
Yes.
it has to be sent to them?
Yes, so it will be uploaded to them, just like our body cam footage. I mean, it really is quite identical to the body cam footage. It's uploaded to Vigilance servers. They store it on behalf of the Winters Police Department. We own the data. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. That data belongs to us. They're just storing it for us.
And they can or anybody else?
No, and not unless we agree, again, wherever the data is shared with, we have to agree and enter into a mutual MOU. So what'll happen is like, let's say, Backville Police Department and the Winters Police Department want to share ALPR. Literally, it's an electronic MOU, and we'll send it out saying, hey, will you share your data with us? We'll share your data, conversely. So we literally have the option of not checking the box for ICE. So ICE will not have the ability to access our data. Likewise, the vigilant doesn't sell the data to private entities.
All right, thank you.
That's prohibited by California law. I don't think I would have made that clear.
May I just follow up on Pierre's question? So if we say we shared data with Vacaville, can Vacaville share that data with ICE?
No, they're prohibited on SB 30, from SB 54. And likewise, they can't share it with private entities because of SB 34.
Okay. Any other council questions before we open it up for public comment? No. Okay. John, let's open it up for public comment, and just a reminder to everybody to please try to keep your remarks to 3 minutes. John, go ahead.
Yeah, first, I'm just going in order, top to bottom, on my list. First is Mr. Trojanowski. And let me make sure he's unmuted. There he is. Mr. Trojanowski, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had two concerns with this here. The first being that using the anti-vehicle theft funds for a trailer for speed, we'd be better off using the LPR cameras on street poles because with the speed vehicle that we'd be putting this on, it'll be tucked away or in just one position. We won't be seeing vehicles drive by it. So I think it'd be better positioned to put them on the street lights like all other cities do, and we'll have a much better capture rate to find the vehicles that are stolen. And the second point that I wanted to make, and I'm very disappointed that license plates are being ran without cause, because you do have to have reasonable suspicion in order to run a license plate. And I'm just dumbfounded to find out that officers are running license plates without reasonable suspicion. That's all of my comments.
Okay, thank you. Sure, James, go ahead.
Mr. President, like I said, we tried to do it with the poles, and that's just, we got no with Caltrans. Caltrans basically maintains Grant Avenue Highway 128. So they own basically all the poles. And as I mentioned, the cost for us to run our own poles is absolutely cost prohibitive. Also, for clarification, I never said that officers are randomly running license plates. You were absolutely right. We have to have a legal reason to run a license plate. Right? That's to check out the registration, or actually that's the most common reason. We were checking the registration to make sure it's a valid registration, which is a legal reason. So it's not just a random thing. That's done through what's called CLEX, which is California Law Enforcement Telecommunications System, which likewise has also an auditing system where they audit us as to why we are running license plates, driver's license, and criminal record history, what we call rap sheets.
I do apologize. I must have misunderstood because you were saying that the officer this morning, and what they can do is they can just run random plates while sitting on the side of the road, or they can write down the license plates and run any license plate they want. And that's why with the LPR system, they would be able to run any plate for registration violations, which the LPR system and the CLEX working together, they only run wants and warrants, and they don't run it for registration.
Yes, sir. What I said was he could write down the license plates, didn't say anything about running it. And I made it also clear, ALPR does not run the license plates, it just records the license plate.
Yes, but if it's in the system to do a hot list check or wants and warrants checks, then it will run it. It's part of the LPR system.
To the hot list, as I explained. So
Yes, and that'll run it in Flex.
Okay, thank you. John, next?
Next is, Kate Lavish. Kate,
I think she's there. Go ahead, Kate.
I think I'm there.
yeah,
Thank you, Mayor, and Kate Laddish, 400 Morgan Street, number 21. And of the different components of this trailer, I'd like to focus my comments on the automated license plate reader portion of it. And really, I'd like to start by thanking Chief Miller for a really excellent conversation that we had last week on this topic, and for reaching out to me when he heard that I still had some questions and concerns about this. I think it's very well of Chief Miller and of our community's culture that such conversations can and do take place. So thank you, Chief Miller. And I'd also like to thank staff for changing this purchase to a discussion item to facilitate public input in accordance with SB 34. While I understand the appeal of automated license plate readers, I remain concerned about the city of Winters adopting a form of warrantless mass surveillance that can be abused. I'm particularly concerned that the vote to adopt this technology could come before council and the public have a chance to read and comment on a Winters-specific usage and privacy policy, and those policies as required by SB 34, as the chief said. The technology we adopt is only as good and as trustworthy as the people using and storing the data gathered. So Vigilant Solutions, the company with which Winters hopes to partner, has a history of selling data to customers that are outside the scope of what the local jurisdictions have planned. While the safeguards enacted in SB 54 should help with this, I remain concerned that Winters will be collecting information, which I believe will include whole car photos of every car that passes, and sending it to a third-party vendor for storage and use. My understanding is that SB 54 will require Winters Police Department to enter into the written agreement or MOU with any individual outside agencies with which it will share the information. So I request council to direct staff to include guidelines for when, how, and how widely that information will be shared, and to include guidelines for terminating sharing agreements when specific investigations are completed. A state auditor's report from February of this year showed that problems remain with automated license plate readers, even with SB 34 and SB 54 in place. Putting a draft, winter-specific draft usage and privacy policy in place before council votes would help to ensure that we uphold our community values and reduce the risk of future abuse of the data. So I respectfully request council to direct staff to draft a usage and privacy policy that is specific to Winters and make that policy publicly available before council votes on the ALPR technology. And so thus I am requesting that council wait to vote on this item until the June 2nd meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. John, next?
sorry, next up is Sandra Amote.
Hello, everybody. I also want to thank Chief Miller for going to such lengths to try to address the concerns that have been raised about this type of technology. I do want to point out that there's qualitative difference between a police officer sitting by the side of the road writing down license plates and a database of license plates that has been systematically collected from the majority of jurisdictions in California and then stored for a long period of time. That is distinct and distinctly subject to abuse. New application of the old authority to look at people's license plates and use them to identify their cars. For the most part, I'm pretty comfortable with the safeguards that are provided by SB 34, and I trust that the Winters Police Department is going to do a good job of abiding by them. I especially appreciate the statement that the data will be destroyed after a year, because that's one of the concerns that I had before this meeting. The concern that I still have is about how widely these data will be shared across departments. Because as soon as another department has access to Winters data, we have to trust not only our local police, but also all of those other departments. And that state report that Chief Miller and Chief Laddish have both mentioned included the statement that the Sacramento Sheriff's Office had shared their database with over 1,000 other entities before being audited. And it was entirely unclear, they couldn't explain to the auditor how it was that they had decided that the policies of all of those law enforcement agencies were compatible with their own policy. So that's the main thing I would like to see further clarified, and why I would like to see a public discussion of the usage and privacy policy before this purchase. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Next, John?
Next up is Denise Cottrell.
Okay. Get them unmuted. Okay, go ahead, Denise or Al.
Yeah, it's Al on Denise's computer, so we're using her computer this evening, that's why her name appears. Al Vallecillo, 210 Main Street. And first I'd like to say thank you to Chief Miller for such an exhaustive report about the technology. Listening to his presentation sort of calmed some of my concerns. But sort of on behalf of the Hispanic Advisory Committee, there is a lot of concern about this technology within that community about what's going to happen with the information. Because if the information can be shared so easily, and I believe that if we're in control of our local officials, it wouldn't be such an issue, but when it gets put out and stored on a cloud somewhere that's controlled by a third party, it becomes very, very sort of out of Chief Miller and the City of Winter's control, as some of the previous speakers have pointed out. But it is of concern to the Latino community how this information is going to be used, if it's going to be shared with ICE. You know, there are state laws that say that can't be done, but these things being done every day that are against the law by entities that should be doing something different. You know, I understand that the radar trailer is important to the police department, and an upgrade to use newer technologies would be good. And I think the trailers reporting speed and the other things they can do are an asset to the community. So I would just like to sort of close in saying that before we implement this tool, that, you know, council direct staff to develop the policies and have a public discussion about how the policies work and what's going to be involved in those policies. Again, as previous speakers have said. And the last thing is, we didn't see any notice go out, any kind of bilingual notice that would notice the Latino community that this was taking place. So in the future, you could direct staff to also keep notices that sort of address the Latino community, as over 50% of our community is Latino. You know, they would appreciate knowing some of the information and being able to participate in these discussions, especially with ones that can affect them so radically. So with that's all I have to say for that. I'd like to say thank you to the council and to the city staff for repairing the sidewalk on Main Street. We have a nice sidewalk without big hazards. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Al. John, is there another one?
Yeah, I'm Mayor Cowan. In our audience here at City Hall, we have Rodney or Roscoe would like to address the council.
Okay, go ahead, Rodney.
Hello, council members, Chief Miller, thank you very much. Chief, you mentioned that the policy you want to adopt with today's adoption of the trailer and ALPR was a boilerplate policy that would be updated once the system is accepted. You also mentioned you read the audit. Quoting from the audit, the state audit, it says law enforcement agencies must first create policies that set clear guidelines for how they will use ALPR data. Chief, you mentioned in your report that ALPR technology, the policy will be updated to include the pertinent required information specific to the Winters Police Department. My question, sir, is having read the audit, which you did, why didn't you put forth specific policy guidelines that are pertinent to the Winters City and Winters City Police Department? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. John, is there any other speakers before we get to the responses?
Yeah, no speakers.
Okay, I also want to mention that the city council did receive a few letters on this topic as well, and I believe those letters went to all the council members. Tracy, would you like to read the names into the record and let us know who all sent letters to the council?
Sure, I have three people who submitted letters. One, Shep Harper, for 431 Russell, said that he doesn't support the ALPRs, but if council approves the ALPRs, he requested there be strong controls that meet SB 34 and SB 54 requirements. The second was received from Jill Shirley. Her address is unknown. She said she strongly opposes the use of warrantless mass surveillance, including ALPRs, and asked council to direct staff to create a City of Winters ALPR usage of privacy policy available for public discussion before any ALPR purchase is approved. And the third was received from Bonnie Dixon, 422 Russell Street, who expressed her concern regarding ALPRs, adding it is critical that the city council not approve the acquisition of an ALPR until after a usage and privacy policy has been put in place that satisfies the council and the residents of Winters, and that is in full compliance with all relevant state laws.
Okay, thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
All right, we will open this back up for comments from staff on the questions that were raised, and then questions from the council as well. Chief Miller, would you like to address any of the questions that were raised?
I wasn't quite sure if there was a pending question. I know that Rodney was asking something about the policy.
Yes.
Okay, I guess my only answer is, I already explained this, is we didn't prepare a policy because we don't have the technology, or the technology is not been approved yet. That's why I said my analogy is like I don't develop a helicopter policy unless we get a helicopter in the city of Winters. We dictate how it's going to be used and stuff like that.
But the pilot does
Okay.
before he takes off on it.
Okay, thank you. I saw Councilmember Lauren's hand up.
Yeah, well, I would like to get back to, what, Rodney's question was, but I will go ahead with my questions first. So you know that I'm the liaison for the Hispanic Advisory Committee, and, we've had a Hispanic Advisory Committee for about 12 years in Winters. The Hispanic Advisory Committee has a mission statement to improve the communication, the information and integration of the community. So we met last night and, last night. And this is what they voted on for us to share on this item. Quote, the Hispanic community was not aware of this item for public comment, and yet might be the most effective if the information goes to ICE, unquote. Additionally, they like the notices in the water bill because everyone gets them, but they're also aware that we can't possibly have agendas a month in advance in order to have them in the water bill. But I will remind council that the Winners Express printed our agendas for 26 years under the direction of Deborah LaGuarcia as editor-in-chief. And the current Express only makes them available to online subscribers. With the digital divide and the paper's inability to print agendas and a language barrier, our Hispanic population isn't being duly noticed. I do not believe that's anyone's fault. It certainly isn't malicious, and it certainly isn't coming from the city, but it is happening. And the Hispanic Advisory Committee would like to work on the improving of communication by not only working with the city, but hoping to reach out to Taylor and Crystal to see if something could be worked out to maybe have a draft or of the agenda, or some way that we can have it translated into Spanish for the Spanish-speaking population. So those are all big items. The comments by Kate and Sandra, the letters. I do have some concerns about the way that we're looking at policy. So I wanted to talk about the policy. Because I think it's one of the most important items if this is going to be developed. First, if we adopt and purchase an ALPR, is it forever? Is the decision that we make tonight a decision that will have a monitoring device forever? I'd like to also ask how we could stay on top of the data so that it doesn't go to ICE, and I think Chief Miller's really doing that a lot, but there just seems to be some, as there are in any, there's malevolent usage of information that we have reasonable laws to limit, but yet we have people who use them. And I understand that he's made that very clear, that that the city will do the best to limit that information. But I would like to possibly consider some of the language to limit how our data is used after it's been shared should be in a document. I think there should be guidelines for sharing agreements, so that if we share it with others, they know what our expectations are, or that they have agreed to our guidelines. I am comfortable approving the trailer portion, but I'm not completely comfortable with the adoption of the ALPR without further discussion of having a public comment and more input on the policy portion.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the council?
And with that, can Rodney clarify what his question was? I wasn't sure if the chief answered that.
Rodney, she's asking.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
I don't know if John still has him on there.
I don't know if Rodney's still there. Okay. We'll move
Okay.
forward.
No, I'm here.
Anybody else on the council have comments or questions?
Hang on a second, I'm here, Jesse.
Okay, I saw Mayor Pro Tem Biagi first, and then after that, it'll be Councilmember Nick.
Very good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, I just would like to say, I think purchasing this trailer, in my opinion, we do need to replace our radar trailer, absolutely. Ours is pretty old and it's been unreliable in the last few years. I also see the
You let her know I'm not ignoring her.
the ALPR on there. I see that as being a benefit to our community. And I understand people's concerns with the data and where it's shared, and I think we could bring that back and review the policy. Let's go into it more specifically into the policy part of it and guidance from public comments, council members, and also direction from our legal counsel. But I think, the ability to look for suspects, like with the homicide that we recently had, and being able to look and get license plate data on that, I think is a key. When there's an Amber Alert, things like that, or arson investigations, I think this could be a great tool for something like that. And, you know, we want to make sure it's used properly, that the data doesn't get used, absolutely, I agree with that too. And I'm not sure, maybe Chief could clarify for me, I think Kate Laddish brought up the question of whether they were taking a picture of the whole car. Is it just reading the license plate? That's my understanding.
No, it reads the license plate with the optical character recognition, and it does take a snapshot of the license plate, and that's basically for confirmation purposes. So that you know that that was a license plate that passed by that location. It doesn't take a picture of the driver, like red light cameras, things like that. It's a picture of the front or the rear. There's examples on the internet, they can look up to give you an example. I mean, you can tell like what type of car it is, what color car it is. You know, so yes, but again, that's like a confirmation.
And so also under the understanding that, so these are used in all of our neighboring communities around us, in Vacaville and Davis, Woodland, and every place you go, if you go out of town, most likely you're getting your license plate read.
Yes.
And I think it makes sense for renters to use the same kind of technology available now. For all the right purposes, not the wrong purposes. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember New.
I just start out by saying I agree with, Councilmember Biasi, as far as the districts around us, the cities around us that have, this technology. I am very much concerned about the policy, but I would imagine that it's going to take a while to build this if it's a custom piece of equipment. And I think that before it can ever be used, the policy has to be approved. And if it takes a month or 6 weeks or so to build this thing, that the policy could be approved and could be written and gone to the public for approval and council approval. And after that, then it could be used. But I would not want the APR portion to be used prior to having a policy.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Anderson, do you have any comments on the topic?
In addition to my comment about eliminating the use of this technology for law enforcement purposes. I think we're looking forward in the technology era, and not put our cities at a disadvantage, which they can improve upon, but as described, this healthcare and all of that stuff. If we cooperate with our neighbors, law enforcement, it's only going to benefit the whole region. That's the way I view it anyway.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a couple comments and then I think the city manager would like to make some as well. I'm in favor of the trailer and the ALPR. I think it's a good tool for the police department, but I also understand that between SB 34 and SB 54, there's a lot of law and regulation there that help to control the usage of this and the non-ability to report things to ICE. I do agree with some of the other comments from council members and public about needing a good sound policy in place. And as was mentioned by Councilmember New, I would fully support the purchase of the trailer fully equipped, with the caveat that we establish our policy and bring it back to the council and approve of that policy and allow for public input prior to using it. I do think it's an important tool for the police department, you know, with child abductions and, you know, all those kinds of things. It can be extremely helpful. And the only kind of question I have that maybe the chief can address is on the MOUs, are those something that are worked out just between police departments, or how are those specifically done? And are they done just for specific cases? Like if they're investigating a murder, Vacaville would say, hey, you know, can we look at some of your data in relationship to this particular case? Exactly how does that work? I don't quite understand how that part works.
Okay, so it is handled over, like I said, Vigilance Network, and it's a one-to-one MOU. So it's like I said, Winter's Police Department, actual police department. The initial MOU is not like there's not a time period or anything like that, so there's no expiration. So once the MOU is entered into, it's entered into, so like both parties are agreeing to continue the MOU. That was again the problem with ICE and Marin County in particular, was they had not closed down that MOU loop. You got to answer your question, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so, that it's not just a short-term thing. So as a long-term thing, then, if we felt or we saw evidence that we thought another jurisdiction that we had an MOU with was, quote, abusing the usage of the information, we could just terminate the MOU, correct?
Absolutely, or block dates and changes if you can't share data or anything like that with certain agencies.
Okay. And they're given a copy of our policy in order to establish the MOU anyway, just like we would theirs, correct?
No, our policy is applicable only to us, just like their policy.
Okay.
is applicable to them.
Okay.
That one section is very specific to the agency.
Okay. All right. John, I think you wanted to address this a little bit as well?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, just real quick. So over $31,000 of the purchase of this trailer is coming from funds that are directly related to the use of the ALPR technology in the trailer. I can tell you, if there's any sense from the council that we are not going to get to that, then I would just say, let's just not buy the trailer. At this point. ALPR technology, I will tell you, the council addressed this back in 2014 when we had the cold fire. We know that we drove by the people who set that fire. And the first thing that everybody asked was our ALPR data on that. We know that 3 weeks ago, there was a 16-year-old boy that was murdered after being chased and shot at going through our city. If we have this type of technology, that person's at large right now, they may never be caught at this point until somebody starts talking. Amber Alerts is we would set up things for this. The chiefs indicated that both SB 34 and SB 54 are accounted for in it. But this is really the decision of the council. If we're not going to get there, we understand the policy. The chief has been very implicit. We're going to have a policy that says this doesn't get shared with ICE, and that's what the policy will say. But if we think that we're going to get to a point where we don't want to do it, my personal recommendation at this point is that we just not buy the trailer.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilmember Warren.
Can you clarify whether it's city manager or Chief Miller, what the process is for determining what our policy will be? Can we just talk a little bit about that process? Who's included? What are the steps? And when will it come back?
Sure, would you like me to?
John, you're muted.
I'll take a shot, I'm sorry. For the most part, the chief will, put together the overall policy in conformance with, flexible with our city, guidelines on everything. Obviously, we'll have legal review, to make sure that it's in conformance. You know, it's not like we can just write our own policies that create a kind of a myriad network. So the policy would have to be consistent. But that policy can specifically say the city of Winter's data, in conformance with SB 34 and 54 will not be shared, with ICE. It can specifically say that. And that would be the policy on it, on things. And if the council wants to come back, they want to see that in writing, we absolutely can do that.
Okay, any other comments?
If I can make a comment.
Go ahead.
The model policy at night, lexical does specifically state, and reflect SB 50 about immigration, as well as private entities under SB 34.
Okay, thank you, Chief. If there's no other comments, then we would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Biaggi.
I would move that we approve the purchase of the radar trailer with the ALPR technology on it, with the caveat that we bring the policy back for review and approval by the city council prior to the trailer being put into use.
Okay,
Second that.
okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Biaggi and a second by Councilmember Lauren to adopt the policy as written with the additional caveat and requirement that the policy be written and approved by the council and allowed for public comment prior to implementing the usage of the trailer. So with that said, we'll do a roll call vote. First though, Councilmember New, did you have an additional comment?
Just, something the way you phrased it, written, you said written and approved by the council, and I don't think you meant that written by the chief or the.
Oh, correct. The policy would be done by staff, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, what's that gonna do to the policy like that? How is that gonna affect the funding agency? When it has funds to been completed within a month or something like that. If we're saying that we're not gonna put this out on the street until we get done with our policy.
I can just tell you, the policy will be back on June 2nd.
Okay, so it would be, we'd have a chance at that before we ever actually receive the trailer is what you're saying, correct?
In the world of COVID-19 and essential and non-essential delivery of anything, I would tell you, we're not getting this thing in the month. So you have to spend money before the end of the fiscal year, so we're giving $31,000 back to the state of California.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. As stated, Tracy, will you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure, Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lauren,
Aye.
Councilmember New,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Biaggi,
Aye.
Mayor Calvin.
Aye. Motion carries with the additions unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on.
I'll be back here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. Item number 4, SB 1, 2019-2020 street rehab project change order for striping. I believe that's going to be the city manager and or our public works director, Eric Lucero.
No, let's turn it over to Eric. maybe you'll bring some change of pace and a smile to everybody.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. Yeah, first I want to thank Tracy Jensen for putting me forth on the discussion item list. So this evening, staff asked the council to approve a change order to the SB1 2019-2020 street rehab project. Originally, when we went out to bid, we purposely left off the striping, and it was because the budget we had was $454,000. And so what I was worried about is if none of the bids came in below that, we would have to deny all the bids, drop things out, start all over, go back out to bid, and would have prolonged that whole process. So fortunately, the lowest bid came in at just a little bit over $460,000, leaving us, roughly around $47,000. So what I did is I got with the contractor, and he went out and got some bids for the striking, and the lowest one was just under $38,000. So that's what we're looking to do here. Our fallback was if we didn't have the extra money there, then we were going to do it ourselves. But if you look around at what's been done, I want to keep this looking as professional as possible. And we can go out and restripe things, but to do fog lines, what we want to do now is we're going to kind of narrow some of the streets and actually widen bike paths, especially down Main Street. That's really what we're trying to do, is just get a real nice professional look here. And that if we approve this evening, I think we're looking at next week getting the contractor out to do this. So that's really what we're looking at doing tonight, is just getting approval to spend the rest of the money that we have. Everything's gone really smooth so far. We only had to tow 3 cars, and it was mostly because they were broke down or they were in repo and stuff. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Is there anybody on the council have any questions for staff on this item? No. Okay, is there anybody from the public that has any questions or comments on this item? John, is there any hands?
Yeah, Mayor and council, no hands.
Okay, all right, if there's no further comment, we'll entertain a motion.
I think Councilman.
Oh, Councilmember New.
So I was just going to make a motion.
Okay, there you go, you did it.
Okay.
And Councilmember Lauren,
Second.
seconded. So we have a motion and a second. Tracy, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Anderson,
Tracy,
Oh.
unmute Tracy. Go ahead, Tracy.
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lauren,
Aye.
Councilmember New,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Biassi,
Aye.
Mayor Cowan.
Aye. So motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, and I'll be bringing this back. We wanted to do a slideshow. I don't know how it's going to work with Zoom, but at some point I would like to have a presentation just to show you what we've got done around town. Looks pretty good.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, item number 5, our budget overview, the continuation from the last council meeting.
Yeah, Mayor and council, I'll start off and I'll turn it over to Shelley. Tonight, basically, we're bringing just a little bit of information with council regarding the impacts of some of the salary reductions and just to kind of give the council and the community a little bit of information on how we've been addressing the entire pay and the cost of things, because there's some things that over the years, especially since 2008, that have literally been implemented to help keep the city afloat. So Shelley's going to talk a little bit about some of the things we talked about in the original budget workshop and proposal, and give the council and the community a little bit of an idea of the way we're kind of targeting some of the reductions and how we expect to pay for some things. So, Shelley, why don't you go ahead?
Good evening, council. We're back talking about our 2021 budget as well as some of the impacts that various tax decisions have played with various employees. First, I wanted to start with an update on our negotiations with our employee groups. We have met with all of the employee groups at least once. There are several that we've had second meetings with. We do not have any agreements in place at this point. So we're still waiting to hear back from those groups and determine if they're countering with any ideas. We are still moving forward with the request that everyone take a 5% pay cut. So that brings the first, or I guess the second part. We have some questions about what the impact would be on various employees based on the, so this first chart. In 2010, when we went through the last recession, department heads in particular froze their wages and then agreed to not have the city pay into the retirement account the match that the city had agreed to back in 2004-ish, that time frame. In addition to that, we also agreed not to be allowed to cash out any admin time. The MOUs that were in place at the time said that we could cash out 54 hours of admin time. For 5 years, we did not allow any cash out of admin time. And then after those first 5 years, we limited it to just half of the amount of the admin time to be available. In addition to that, we have contributed back our deferred comp match back into the general fund. And so what I prepared on this particular spreadsheet by employee is how much each of the department heads in particular have donated back to the general fund by person, so that you can see individually how much each person has donated back. Some of them are a little less than others because some people have retired, so they didn't do it quite as long. But if you look, you can see what the city managers donated back, what former administrative director Nancy Mills has donated back, what I have donated back, what Dan McGuire has donated back. And then I grouped, you know, we've had several police chiefs. So I have Chief Mermother, Chief DeCarris, Chief Miller, how much each one of those have individually given back. So since 2010 to our pay cut that we got on the 6th of May, in total, the department heads have donated back $514,000 that theoretically, according to our agreed upon employment agreements with the city, we should have had either in our deferred comp or in our profits during that time period. So we just wanted to let you see that we are continuing to limit those abilities to receive cash and cash contributions into our deferred comp. Other associations have also been limited in not having contributions to their deferred comp, but they are significantly less. It's not that they're less important, it's just that there's fewer of those people. Their agreements are smaller amounts, so they've still been impacting and giving back to the community during that time period. It's not the huge dollar amount, and it's harder to move. The more you move out and try to get the data, the harder it is to go back and find all of that data, because people have come into the organization and gone out of the organization. So
And, you know, hey, Shelley, let me kind of point out just one little thing about this is that, so a lot of the issues that we're dealing with right now were coming up in 2008. At that time, we did a number of very similar things to try and save the ship. 2008 was not a great year because in that year we lost 23% of our property tax. 23%. And that was a big deal. And at that time, basically, we were looking at ways that we could especially keep the community pool open, keep parks operating, and to keep the just the community center open. So as we sat back, that's the reason why we took it. And if you look at it, for the most part, you know, for some of us at this point, it represents giving back a year of pay. So at the end of the day, it's actually turned out to be some real money on the things that we've put together. And you know, the anticipation is that you know, and unfortunately, Nancy doesn't work anymore. Dan doesn't work here. But the amount kind of goes down a little bit because in the overall scope of things, at least two of the people that are donating. But I think the way that we set it up is that this money comes back as a direct donation to the city's general fund each year. So anyway, go ahead, Shannon.
So part of the reason I wanted to say that is there's been some questions about why we're asking for a 5% pay cut. And part of the reason about that is some of the things that are implemented in the MOU in 2010 that we volunteered to get back because we were able to see what the situation was with the city finances have never been re-implemented. So it's not like we can start with that, for lack of a better word, low-hanging fruit. That low-hanging fruit has never come back. So the next spreadsheet, what I did was I listed each employee without names. The first column is what that person's monthly pay rate would be, the whole MOU implementation based on what the July 1st, 2020 MOU salary schedule states that person should be paid. Then the next column talks about, okay, if we just froze the monthly pay at their current pay rate, then the amount that that employee on the first line would be giving up is $320 a month. The next column says, okay, if we cut the pay by 5%, their new monthly pay rate is $12,183. The reduction in pay per month from the MOU is $961 a month. The blue column is the annual reduction in pay from MOU implementation if we just for MOU implementation, it would be a cut in pay of $11,532 for this person. And if we had a yearly cut in pay, it would be $7,609. I'm sorry, if we froze the pay and didn't increase the rate like we're supposed to, it's $7,692 for that person. So you can look and see the impact on each individual person. There are no
Excuse me, Shelley.
Uh-huh.
Mayor Count here.
Yes.
On this and what you're showing me.
I don't hear anything. I see it.
Can't we hear him?
I don't know. What's John's doing? I don't think so.
lost their sound.
Close one. I wonder if that's just for us here. No, I imagine if they couldn't hear, they'd be screaming and yelling, right?
They can hear it.
That's how you do this, does it? That was something.
That was me.
Which means, does that mean we're not being heard on the closed circuit either?
Nope. I don't know what to check. It just went off as soon as he started talking. This doesn't have anything to do with it.
Is it on his end?
No, John said, he said he can hear it in his computer fine.
If you look, well, that must be his computer, it says unmute.
That's me,
That's you?
that's me.
So do you need to unmute that?
No, if they wanna hear me talk, I
Oh.
unmute it.
Oh,
Oh, god darn, that just,
well, you didn't do anything.
I know.
Microphone room. Oh,
Great.
I'd like to hear it.
Yeah.
Well, does John record these?
No, it's just our IT.
Oh, I'm not getting anything now. And you can't hear anything either, you're supposed to transcribe it, right?
Right.
So, I think we're all hopeful that that does not come to pass, that that's not something that we would have to do, but in the event that it does, we need to be prepared to defend any challenges that may come our way. And I'm happy to address any questions that any of the council members have.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. Does anybody on the council have questions or comments? Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi.
Yeah, I have a question, and it will also be for Ethan. Ethan, one of the things that was brought up when we discussed that amount, that $250,000 amount, was the issue of the city not being transparent on what that money was for. I thank you for maybe shedding some light on that tonight for the residents of the city and can you maybe explain a little bit more too, why the city manager or the council couldn't comment on specific things like that?
So, yeah, I think and I apologize for missing the last meeting. I had a conflict and my colleague apparently had some technical difficulties where she wasn't able to speak up. But I think in general, the council and city staff have been wary of how they speak about the initiative because we don't want to be in a position where we're seen as advocating for one position or another. So that I think that's part of it. And I think another part of it is that that the city staff was concerned about potentially, compromising our position or being in a position where we're providing information on how we're thinking about strategies related to legal issues that they're not in the best position to do. And I appreciate the fact that John is being very careful about that. And so I think that was kind of the reason that staff didn't want to elaborate on that issue without me being at the meeting. Given that I'm your legal counsel, I feel like I understand where the boundaries are a little bit more, and I can speak to these things a little more directly. But I appreciate staff and the council being careful on these issues and not putting the city in kind of a more defensive position with some of these things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember New.
And this is a question for Ethan also. These kind of referendums or this ballot measure that they're putting up, have there been in the last, I don't know, I only think about Davis, and that seems to me a place that would have a lot of lawsuits. They've had all kinds of these ballot issues. And have they ever had any lawsuits from the ballot issue this time? Or anybody else in our county? Is it common?
So I would say it's hard to answer that specifically in that this would be a challenge to the initiative measure specifically, and those don't come along very often. The initiative or the measure that's in place in Davis, I want to say it was adopted about 20 years ago, and it's been renewed from time to time since then. But it was adopted, decades ago, and as I recall, I don't think there was a legal challenge challenging the substance of the initiative. There have been a number of lawsuits over projects that have been moved forward through the initiative process. There was a lawsuit on the West Davis Active Adult Community, which was subsequently dismissed, and then there was also a challenge on the Nishi property that was approved, which was another project that was done under Measure R. So those do happen occasionally. For something like this, where there's an actual initiative measure, I mean, I don't know statistics, Councilmember New. I would say they do happen. I don't know exactly how frequently they are, and they're dependent on a lot of different factors: who the interest groups are, who the affected property owners are, what their kind of appetite for litigation is, and so it's very fact specific. And in this situation, I don't know how people specifically are thinking about this issue, so it wouldn't really be my place to predict the likelihood of litigation in this instance, other than the fact that there's always a possibility, and we do have the obligation to defend it if it comes to pass.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Biaggi.
Yeah, I just have one more comment. It's actually back to the table that Shelley put together, showing the amounts of contributions that our department heads have actually donated back to the to the city general fund. I think it's pretty impressive when you see it laid out in a table like this. These are sacrifices that have been made by our city manager, Nancy Mills, Shelley Gumby, Dan McGuire, the police chiefs. I mean, it's pretty impressive to see over $500,000 that they've given back that they could have easily taken and, put it into their retirement accounts or whatever they want to do with it. And they have chose over the last 10 years to give that back to the general fund to help keep the city afloat. I think it needs to be acknowledged of the sacrifices that they're making for the city as well. So thank you for putting this information together. For Shelley and John, both of you did. Good job.
Absolutely agreed. Is there any other council comments before we open it up for any public comments? Councilmember New.
Thanks. That chart that Shelley made, have gone down to the bottom and we've seen it. But the chart showing what their cuts would be at 7.5%. What do we know what the total cut that is for the whole city? How much money does that save the city when you get down and total it all up?
For the general fund, and I said focus on the general fund. So for the general fund, when you add all of that together, along with the impact on taxes and CalPERS, it saves the general fund almost $275,000.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Lauren.
I wanted to just reiterate what Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi, the amount of $514,000, $500,000 is an astounding sacrifice by staff to keep the city afloat. And I think it's a reminder of kind of what we're made of here. We work hard, and but nobody has sacrificed as much as the administrators, and these numbers prove it. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with both Councilmember Lauren and Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi. The sacrifices over the years by everybody, the administrators and right on down, with the 208 situation and then what we're trying to do now to save us from bankruptcy, basically. It's absolutely amazing the personnel we've had over the years that have stuck with us through thick and thin and made their lives and their their whole life to winners, which is just amazing because for most small cities, these positions are nothing but stepping stones to bigger and better things. And we've been extremely fortunate to have employees that want to stay in winners, and we're really lucky to have that. Is there any other comments before we open it up for public comment? Okay, John, I guess we're ready to hear any public comment on this item.
Yeah, Mayor, no hands up. So I think, no comment.
Wait, there's Kate Laddish.
All right, we got Kate. All right, Kate, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Kate Laddish, 400 Morgan Street, number 21. And it's very short, and I just want to follow up on what several of you have said. Thank you so much to staff for everything that you do now and through the years. I'm lucky to get to interact with a number of people on City of Winter staff, and we have a lot of really fine people here who are very dedicated to this. And so thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate. Anybody else with a hand up, John?
I think we're good.
Okay, I think I saw Councilmember New's hand up again.
Yeah, well, I was just checking, is this the only budget item that we're going to be talking about, or are we going to do more on the budget?
We will come back on June 2nd. Much more detailed, much more specific. We're going through, we're crushing a little bit of information on economics. I will share with you that we contacted the consulting firm who did a lot of the economic stuff for Davis because they got some county level stuff to try and give the council and the community a little more input on where we're at on things. They came in, their proposal was like $25,000. We don't have $25,000. So we're going to, Shelley and I are going to have to huddle for social distancing to try and figure out, but we'll be bringing back quite a bit more information on June 2nd and going kind of piece by piece. So this is, tonight is just one portion, but we'll bring back, I think, more of the specifics and everything back on June 2nd.
Okay. In addition, on June 2nd, are we then voting for approval on what you turn out, or is that just more information?
We'll need to walk out of June 2nd with the framework, and but we have to adopt a budget resolution in June. So a lot of information on June 2nd. That'll be the focus of the agenda, plus the ALPR policy, but we'll want kind of the framework blocking out of there of what the budget will look like. But officially, it'll come back another time, probably on the 16th.
Are you going to have any input from the council before that time?
Help me out here. What were you thinking?
Well, it's just that there are a lot of items on that were brought up at our last meeting that have not been talked about at all tonight. And I don't want to have the meeting on our next meeting come up and you're going to want us to leave that meeting, coming to the next meeting prepared to vote. And I think we've got a lot of loose ends. So that's all I can say. We've got a lot of work to do. I still have a lot of questions, which many of them I raised with you this morning. And,
okay. Here's what we'll do. We're going to bring all those loose ends back on June 2nd. If the council still wants to talk about it a little bit more, we can schedule another meeting or another meeting. Like I said, at the end of the day, we just need to have a budget resolution done by the end of June. So we've got a little bit of time. So give us a shot at bringing back some of the loose ends on the 2nd, because we need that time. Things are like insane right now. But let us come back on the 2nd. We'll focus on the areas that are being impacted, and however more the council wants to wrestle with things, that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Lauren.
I wanted to just take a minute to acknowledge that this is a really hard time for families everywhere. But in winters, people are really struggling, and our city is struggling, and our council is struggling, and the city manager is under enormous pressure. And I just want to say that it's a time where many of us under stress, get sick or have other problems. I mean, it's just really a hard time, and I wanted to say thank you that we've all found a way to be resilient and have a sense of humor, no matter how dark the times are, and to move forward and find reasons to move forward together. And I'm really grateful for the team that we have and for the city that we have. But that said, I do have a question, and I'm almost ready to answer it or to ask it. Has there been any word from the feds or from the state on money coming to cities, in the near future to relieve us of this pressure. Don?
Well, when you like, yeah.
Somebody's dog, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Harold's dog, so we muted Harold. The governor released his budget last week. He basically carried forward a 54, almost a $55 billion deficit from where they were back in January. Part of that is reliant on getting $14 billion worth of aid from the feds. And, I'm not going to predict anything on Washington, D.C. They're actually kind of childish a little bit. The $3 trillion, I think it's called the Heroes Fund or whatever. The Senate said that's DOA. The president said that he's not going to do it. I was reading Bloomberg this afternoon, and $3 trillion they're saying in the Bloomberg article that I looked at from what I thought was a reliable source. They're saying that it will get nowhere near what the House passed. So I don't even want to guess. We may get a little bit of money. There's still about $1 billion that is coming into the state that cities are asking to be divvied up. But my guess is that billion will get eaten up pretty quick. We would probably get pennies out of it. So, but we'll just keep on paying attention and see what happens.
Okay, thank you, John. Was there any other comments from anybody regarding the budget for tonight? I will say, I believe, John, you correct me if I'm wrong, part of the budget situation here with being able to look at all the individual items, as Councilmember New was alluding to, that we didn't even touch on tonight. I think part of that, if I understand things correctly, is staff's desire to wait until you get all the responses back from the employee groups, so you have a better feel for where you stand with all that. Is that true?
Yeah, and a matter of fact, as part of my report, I'm going to be asking for a special executive session of the City Council within the next week to talk about that with the council.
Okay. Are you thinking you'll have those employee agreements for the June 2nd meeting?
That's why we're going to have the executive session.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right, well, we're not voting on this. It's just another discussion item. So if there's no more discussion on it, we'll move on to the city manager's report.
All right, we're going to end with good things, at least a couple of good things. Let's talk about PSPS, public safety power shutdowns. So the good news is that PG&E installed some switches around here. So the good news is that probably the city is not going to be seeing the type of shutdowns that we had last year. And based on the information I saw today, that also includes the downtown not getting shut down, which is super critical. So much of the city is fed from a line coming from the west to east into town, but then there's this super secret line that comes up through Solano that both of those have switches on them. So that means that the city is going to be relatively spared, which I thought that was good news. For the county areas around us, not so much. The prospect is that, if you live in the country, it's gonna be country living, because I think that, the county areas are gonna be impacted. Just a real quick update on COVID-19 stuff. The Board of Supervisors today, they did not pass. Basically, they kicked to next week, anything on opening of restaurants. And, they gave direction to the staff and to, folks to look at, as far as, the overall protocols and guidance documents. That was kind of disappointing simply because both Sacramento and Solano County are both announcing that they're gonna open up their restaurants, and retail, Thursday. So, it looks like Yolo County's gonna be a little bit behind the curve. We'll know next week. I will share with council that, from the city hall standpoint, one of the things that we know about this shutdown is that we have a lot of people in this town who pay with cash. And the importance of the city reopening in some manner is very important. We've got a very large population that, you know, their water bills and everything are costing a little bit more because, we don't like getting cash in envelopes. That, from an audit standpoint, that does not work for us. So a lot of people have been going out and getting, cash, mail orders and all that type of stuff. And in some cases, it's increasing their monthly bills by, 10 or 15 bucks. Not a good idea. So from the city hall perspective, we are working on a strategy which would hopefully have us open, our doors, obviously with a lot of control measures and everything, on June 1st, which is on Monday. And I know that there's a lot of other cities and government offices that are looking to do the same. We are targeting June 1st. We will have the safeguards, we will have social distancing, we will have policies in place for our employees, but look for June 1st, for City Hall to be open. And then finally, as I kind of mentioned, staff, we'll be sending a little survey tomorrow morning out to the council. We need to have an executive session with the city council to discuss issues with our employees. So we will do that. We will post the meeting and we will most likely just do it over Zoom. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you, John. I do want to mention, I believe it's Thursday, is that not correct, John? When we have a meeting scheduled with the business owners to talk about some ideas that we have and that you and I and some of the business owners have been developing for a way to, you know, help them with their reopening, with, you know, doing some adjustments downtown to allow for more outside dining, especially with the news out of ABC that it wouldn't require any additional licensing. They would actually have quite a bit of flexibility for doing that, which made it, you know, pretty doable thing. So that Zoom meeting is on Thursday, I believe, correct?
Business Town Hall 2 will be on Thursday, 11 o'clock in the morning. We'll post it up on our social media for anybody that wants to listen in. I know we've got a very good team. I've been meeting with the various business owners. Shout out to Emery with the Buckhorn, Corinne, Chris Turkovich, Cole Ogando. We're going to look at an overall strategy on being able to open them up responsibly, safely. For those who like Fourth Friday, get ready. It'll be Fourth Friday on steroids for probably 6 or 7 months. But we think that it's gonna be awesome. So, we're working on some concepts, we'll go over them, we'll go over some of the, information on guidance documents for when we get ready. And, so look for it, Thursday, 11 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, John. If there's nothing else, then we'll close the meeting at 9:12. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Wasn't it?
Just to give you a heads up, I'm gonna email John, I'll CC you and Ethan about that minute, the part we
Yeah.
missed, cause I,
Yeah, there was like just as soon as Wade started talking.
Oh, I
we were
know.
just Out.
and I know a lot of people are just interested in that $250,000,
Yeah,
and that's
right.
exactly what he came in on. And I said, "Wait,
Exactly.
wait a minute."
I know, it's like, what? I just don't.
So I'm just gonna, I'll email, like I said, I'll CC, or you'll be on it, just to let her know, we
Thank
didn't
you,
hear
I
about
would
it.
really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely,
Okay,
just so you're on it, and just what was
yeah,
said.
I just, I'm glad I had my iPad.
That
I
was
just
quick thinking, I didn't. That was clever.
gotta try something else.
Give you credit for that. Everybody get home and charge this thing before it dies. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Ronnie. Have a good night.
As well.